Today on Muscle Car, we're going plumb crazy. From AC and heater lines to turning a pile of pipes into radiator hoses. Our guys don't need a plumber to get it done. Plus a big bad blue AMX. And Project Overkill returns.
Hey guys, welcome to Muscle Car. You know, with all the time we've been putting into Altered Ego and the Tribute Trans Am, Red Sled here has been feeling a little neglected. So today, we're going to show her some love. The body needs to come off the frame and get put back on the rotisserie, and that means that all these body panels need to come off one more time. It's amazing how fast a car can go from apparently complete to a shell on a frame. A few body mounts later, and it's a body on a rotisserie. There's still a lot of body work to be done on our 61 Impala, but the next time body meets frame, it'll be shiny red. For now, it's leaving the shop for a long visit to the prep area, because we don't want the Trans Am shiny paint covered in bodywork dust. The Tribute Trans Am is getting down to the final assembly. Since we've got the convertible top on, the AC is next. Now this car didn't come from the factory originally equipped with air conditioning, but hey, we gotta stay cool while we're cruising in this hot ride. So we're gonna use a kit from Vintage Air to add AC, but still keep the stock look. This kit includes everything: control panel, wiring, ductwork, condenser, dryer, and all the mounting hardware. It allows you to use the original vents, and the control panel mounts in the stock location. The brackets, dryer, and lines all need to be pre-assembled to the condenser before it goes on the car. There's no rocket science involved here, just lots of tiny nuts and bolts. The pressure switch is the last piece of the puzzle before it's mounted to the car. This condenser uses the original mounting holes, so no drilling is required. When you're mounting the evaporator, keep in mind things like the clearance you're going to need for your feet, glove box, and then the electronics that'll also need to go under the dash. Also be aware of where the lines will come through into the engine compartment. You don't want to end up poking them through into the wheel well or the back of the engine. Once you've got it where you like it, mark where the holes for the lines go, drop it back out, and get your hole saw. We need 4 holes, 2 larger ones for the heater hoses and 2 smaller ones for the AC lines. We're sealing them up with grommets from Earl's to keep unwanted debris and water from leaking into the passenger compartment. The heater hoses are pretty easy to install, but this kit also includes a valve that needs to be mounted on the feed hose. It can go anywhere you can make room for it, so we made use of the existing mounting holes under the computer. The AC lines can be mocked up next. Gotta Show sent us a braided stainless steel and Teflon line kit that includes all the fittings required. We needed ours with a tight bend to clear the hood, but these kits are available with several different options, so that was no problem. I've wrapped the ends of the lines in tape to keep them from fraying. The kit supplies you with enough hose to complete the whole system, but it's up to you to cut it to length. The easiest way to cut these is with a die grinder. Just make sure to measure twice and cut once, because this hose does not come cheap. We're sending these lines out to have the ends crimped on, and it's important to clock and mark them so that whoever does the job knows what position the end should be in. If they're wrong, you could end up having to twist them out of shape, making them impossible to install. They should also be numbered to make sure the right fittings end up on the right ends, or you could end up with a bunch of expensive but totally useless lines. There it is. Now with these marked, I can send them back to Gotta Show, and they'll crimp on the ends for us. Now you can probably find someone local that can do it for you. Just make sure they have the right equipment for this type of an end. Now stick around, because after the break, we're going to take the project in a new direction.
Coming up, see how the steering comes together on the Tribute Trans Am.
Hey, welcome back. You know, every time we push this car around the shop, we think to ourselves, man, sure would be cool if this thing steered. Well, I figure it's about high time we put the steering in it, but the linkage has to go around the headers, so these have to go in first. Doug's pitched in with the headers, and we don't want any exhaust leaks, so we're hitting the bolts with some Loctite anti-seize, because leaky headers, well, they can make your high-dollar ride sound like a neglected Pinto. The original brake pedal assembly is being pressed back into service, and after a quick blasting and powder coat, it looks good as new. We're using a steering column kit from Flaming River. It comes complete with a column mount that's already been clearanced for wiring. We ordered ours in raw steel and painted it to match the rest of the dash. Our linkage will consist of 2 pieces. The first section will be long enough to extend a few inches into the column, and we'll place the first knuckle so it clears the exhaust. The knuckles use set screws that hold the shaft in position, so I'm drilling the indents they'll sink into. With the first link in place, I can drop in the second knuckle and measure the length of the last piece. The test fit looks great, so we're almost there. The lower column mount goes in and the steering wheel can go on. Keeping with the Trans Am theme, Year One hooked us up with a Lucara wheel. It comes with an original style adapter and horn switch, and it's a modern version of a classic design. The crowning jewel is a horn button with the iconic Screamin' Chicken. There's one more thing we can do in the engine compartment before we put the Trans Am up on the lip for the plumbing and exhaust, and that's the radiator hoses. Now the LS7 here is using an intake the size of a sewer pipe, so that means we're going to have to get a little creative. Oh, cool, you got the pipe?
Think we can use that, man?
Yeah, that'll work. Tell you what, we can use the hose here for a connector, and bring this in and chop the ends off, and use these bends here and run it across underneath. What do you think?
That could work.
As long as we can get it over here with a straight connector on that end, that should be all right, huh?
Yeah.
Cool, let's chop it up. Borrowing a trick for the street rod crowd, we're using exhaust pipe to make a radiator hose. The main thing you have to remember when doing this is all the cuts have to be 90 degrees to the pipe. It's a lot like building header tubes, just without the collectors. Starting from the radiator and working my way to the water neck, I'm taping the pieces in place and clocking them as I go. It may look difficult, but it's actually easier than finding a preformed hose to fit, and it ended up being kind of fun. While I'm making the lower hose, Brent's sticking the pieces together. We're planning on powder coating these pieces, so we use the TIG welder, well, because the welds are cleaner and they'll be easier to dress. Right on, man. Looks good.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Well, you ain't done yet. Still got the bottom one to do. Trade you.
Fine.
I'll prep this one out for powder coating. These are going to see a lot of heat cycles, and we don't want the finish to come off, so I'm going to sandblast them to give them a rough texture for the powder coat to bite onto. You can also sand them down with some 80 grit for the same result.
Hold up there, Richard.
Got it ready?
Yeah, man.
All right.
We'll fire up the oven.
All right, cool. Well, we got our hoses powder coated and clamped in place with a few inches of rubber on each end. And that means that our engine cooling system is done. Now keep your butt glued to that seat, because later on in the show, we're going to be rolling in a project that I'll bet you guys thought we forgot about.
Up next, think American Muscle begins and ends with the Big Three? AMC proves otherwise. Today's Flashback, a 1969 AMX.
You can drive these cars with 3 fingers. 3, 4 inches either way makes a world of difference right now.
Meet Todd Harrison, and he's talking about a '69 American Motors Experimental. Now, most muscle car enthusiasts will think Big 3 when you ask them what their favorite ride is, but not Todd. He is AMC all the way, and this is one of 4 American motor cars he has parked in his garage. This big bad blue '69 was love at first sight for Todd.
A couple of cars and a bunch of parts came available, and my buddy Tim Kemp was telling me about it and said, "You see it, you'll buy it." Went and looked at it and went and bought it the next day.
This rare AMX has only a little over 29,000 ticks on the odometer, and it's in great shape. After Todd bought the car in '07, all it needed was a little engine work. Now, some guys might lock up a car and stuff it full of mothballs after this sort of a find, but not Todd. He bought this car for the go, and with a 390 under the hood, it's got plenty of it.
When you're accelerating to pass a car or accelerating in any way, it just gains so much speed so fast. You give it a little bit of gas and you're really moving before you know it. Like, this shouldn't be this fast already.
A Borg-Warner T10 4-speed backs up the 390, and dual torque links coupled with a posi rear end make sure all that power makes it to the asphalt. With the wheelbase and overall length exactly 12 inches less than its big brother, the Javelin, the AMX was made to race. The shorter wheelbase allowed tighter handling through the windy roads that Trans Am racers were constantly subjected to.
Around the curves, little windy roads or whatever, it's great in town. And it's also comfortable to drive on the interstate. It's a good all-around vehicle.
The outward styling of these cars scream AMC. The front bumper was painted to match the rest of the car in '69, but was changed to chrome in '70. The sloping hatchback design keeps the car's aerodynamics in check, and Outback AMC kept it simple with more paint on the bumpers and limited badging. As if these cars don't already stand out in a crowd, AMC decided to make 3 big bad colors in '69. 284 were big green, 283, well, those were big orange, and only 195 were made like Todd's in big bad blue. The stripe that runs over the top indicated this is a Power Pack car. This option was only available in the 343 or 390 AMX, and it included power disc brakes, redline tires, twin grip axle, and a 140 mile-an-hour speedometer. The insides of these cars are downright small, 2 bucket seats up front, and that's all she wrote. The gauges are oversized and easy to read, and every AMX has a dash plate with a unique production number. There's a lot of things that can be said about a '69 AMX, but Todd likes to keep a simple philosophy on his.
Rinse, wash, and enjoy.
Don't go anywhere. There's a lot more muscle car coming at you after the break. Hey guys, welcome back. Now, we got a lot of really cool projects going on here in Muscle Car, and everybody's got their favorite. But one in particular that gets a lot of attention anywhere it goes is the same one that you guys have been sending us a lot of emails about. Our 1970 Challenger, Project Overkill. When Year One brought us this car, it was in bad shape. It had been used and abused as a stunt car in the movie Too Fast, Too Furious, and needed some serious TLC. To bring it back to its former glory, it was blasted, had its many rust problems solved, got some new panels, and had the firewall smoothed out. The mean Mopar 528 met up with a 5-speed gearbox, and some bracing was added, along with a custom 3-inch exhaust. Brent finished up the bodywork and blocking and sprayed on the vitamin C orange. The body was dropped onto the K-member, the Dana 60 was bolted up along with the suspension, and it got some finishing touches. Now, Year One has been great about supplying any parts we need to get Project Overkill back on the road. And Keith Manny is here to talk to us about everything that's been done since the last time you guys saw it. How you doing, Keith?
Very well, thanks.
Cool. Welcome to the shop, man.
Appreciate it. Good to see you, Brent.
You too, man.
Since the last time everybody really saw the car, we've gotten quite a bit done. We've gotten all the plumbing done for the fuel system and the brake system. We've gotten the air ride installed, and we've got about 90% of the wiring done.
Cool. Very cool. What do you say we get her on the lift and check out the plumbing?
All right.
Right. We can do that.
Well, we already got our lines run. We'll just start back here. You just tell us a little something about the sending unit there.
One of the cool things that we offer at Year One, you know, for these cars is a sending unit that already has a modified pickup, a 1/2-inch pickup. You know, this thing's got a big thirsty Hemi in it, and the Hemi's got to have a lot of gas. So if you're after gas mileage, don't buy a Hemi. Okay, so we've got to feed this thing, and that necessitated running a 1/2-inch line everywhere. Now the difficult part of that is if you're using a stock type tank and have a stock type pickup, how do you get that 1/2-inch line to mate up with the stock piece? So we actually reproduced one with a 1/2-inch pickup. Takes care of that problem for you.
Very cool.
Now obviously this car's been modified on the bottom so much that we had to bend our own lines. You know, you guys are involved in all of that. So we've used tube nuts, 1/2-inch stainless steel line running all the way to the front. The other line that you see here is actually a return, because one of the cool things that we'll do is, like the original Hemi cars, we'll use a vapor separator up front, and that will feed it with a 1/2-inch line. There's a 1/4-inch return line that comes back that circulates the fuel, it keeps the fuel cooler. It actually helps with emissions too. Okay, once we get up here to the wheel well, it turns 90, runs up along the frame rail, and then turns 90 again into the engine compartment, where it'll really go from the hard line to braided stainless line to run to the vapor separator and then the fuel pump.
Well, that takes care of the fuel line. What about the brake lines?
Well, Rick, it's pretty much the same story on the brake lines. You know, the car's been modified so much we couldn't use the pre-bent off-the-shelf lines, so we pretty much made them all. You know, started with a kit that's a big roll of steel tubing and got busy. One of the cool things that we did, when you're done, we take a pre-bent line or get some of this armor, you know, and slide on it, so it not only looks a little more original, but it does provide some protection to the brake line itself.
Springy stuff over the top, right?
Right, that's it. Stainless steel lines, you know, that actually go out to the calipers on all four corners. That's not only safer, but provides a much better, more firm brake pedal feel. Yeah.
Well, that just about covers all the plumbing, but we also still have the wiring and the air ride system to go over. But for this week, we're about out of time. So make sure to check us out next week to get the lowdown on all that stuff. Hey, Keith, I want to say thanks for coming in and give us a hand, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. I like hanging out with you guys.
Sweet. Come back next week?
Sure.
Right on. But for now, we're out of here.